Olivia Matthews smoothed down her pencil skirt and adjusted her blazer as she stepped out of the elevator onto the 37th floor. Another Monday morning at Hartwell & Associates, where she had worked as a junior accountant for the past 2 years since graduating college. At 24, Olivia felt like her life was on a steady, if unremarkable, trajectory. Decent job, nice apartment shared with a roommate, weekend brunches with friends. She was doing all the things a young professional in Chicago was supposed to do. As she settled in at her desk and logged into her computer, Olivia's co-worker Jen leaned over the cubicle divider. "Did you hear? Mr. Hartwell is coming in today for the quarterly review meetings. I heard he's been spending most of his time at the New York office lately." Olivia nodded absently. Robert Hartwell was the founder and CEO of the firm, but she had only seen him in person a handful of times at large company events. At 45, he was known for his sharp business acumen and philanthropic efforts. Olivia admired him from afar, but as a junior employee, she had no real interaction with upper management. The day passed in its usual fashion: spreadsheets, client calls, a working lunch at her desk. By late afternoon, Olivia was deep in concentration, poring over some discrepancies in the monthly reports. She barely registered the sound of voices in the hallway outside her cubicle. "And this is where our junior associates and support staff sit," she heard someone say. Olivia glanced up just as a small group of men in expensive suits walked by. Her eyes locked for a brief moment with an older man at the center of the group. He gave her a small nod of acknowledgement before continuing on. Olivia felt her cheeks flush slightly as she realized she had just made eye contact with Robert Hartwell himself. She shook her head, chiding herself for getting flustered over such a minor interaction. Still, there was something magnetic about his presence, even in that fleeting moment. Later that evening, Olivia met up with her roommate Zoe for their weekly yoga class. As they rolled out their mats, Zoe chatted about her latest Tinder disaster. "I'm telling you, Liv, dating in this city is impossible. Maybe I should just get a cat and call it a day." Olivia laughed. "Come on, you're only 25. There's plenty of time." "Easy for you to say, you're not even trying. When's the last time you went on a date?" Olivia shrugged. The truth was, she hadn't prioritized dating lately. Between work and her other commitments, she told herself she was too busy, but a small part of her wondered if she was using that as an excuse to avoid putting herself out there. As the yoga instructor led them through sun salutations, Olivia tried to clear her mind and focus on her breath, but she found her thoughts drifting to that brief encounter earlier in the day, and the inexplicable flutter she had felt in that moment. 2 weeks later, Olivia was working late, trying to finish up some reports before heading out for the weekend. The office was mostly empty, just a few other workaholics scattered about. She decided to take a quick break to refill her water bottle in the kitchen. As she rounded the corner, she nearly collided with someone coming from the other direction. "Oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry," Olivia started to say, then froze as she realized who was standing in front of her. Robert Hartwell smiled warmly. "No need to apologize. I wasn't looking where I was going either." His voice was deep and rich, with just a hint of a southern accent. Olivia felt herself blushing furiously. "Mr. Hartwell, I didn't realize you were still here." "Please, call me Robert," he said. "And yes, I often work late when I'm in town. I find the quiet helps me focus." He glanced at the water bottle in her hand. "Looks like you had the same idea I did. I came to grab some coffee. Care to join me?" Olivia hesitated for a moment, then nodded. As Robert poured them each a cup of coffee, he asked her about her role at the company and how long she had been there. Olivia was surprised to find herself relaxing as they chatted. Despite his position, Robert had an easygoing manner that put her at ease. "You know, I started out in a junior role much like yours," Robert mused. "It feels like a lifetime ago now." "How did you decide to start your own firm?" Olivia asked, genuinely curious. Robert's eyes lit up as he launched into the story of the early days of Hartwell & Associates. Olivia found herself captivated, both by the tale and by the passion with which he told it. She hadn't realized how much time had passed until she glanced at her watch and saw that nearly an hour had gone by. "Oh gosh, I should really get back to those reports," she said reluctantly. Robert nodded. "Of course, I've kept you far too long, but I enjoyed our chat, Olivia. Perhaps we'll run into each other again sometime. As Olivia gathered her things to leave that night, she couldn't shake the lingering warmth she felt from their conversation. She told herself it was simply the thrill of connecting with someone she admired professionally. But deep down, she knew there was something more to it, a spark of attraction she hadn't felt in a long time. Over the next few weeks, Olivia found herself staying late at the office more often, hoping for another chance encounter. She chided herself for being silly. Robert travelled frequently, and surely had better things to do than chat with a junior employee. But she couldn't deny the way her pulse quickened every time she heard his voice in the hallway or caught a glimpse of him from afar. One evening, Olivia was heading to the elevator when she heard someone call her name. She turned to see Robert walking towards her, briefcase in hand. "Heading out?" he asked with a smile. Olivia nodded. "Just finished up for the day." "Oh, perfect timing. I was about to grab dinner at that little Italian place around the corner. Care to join me? I hate eating alone when I'm travelling." Olivia hesitated. Having dinner with the CEO was probably crossing some kind of professional line, but the thought of spending more time with Robert was too tempting to resist. "I'd love to," she heard herself say. As they settled into a cosy booth at the restaurant, Olivia felt a mix of nerves and excitement. Over plates of pasta and glasses of wine, their conversation flowed easily. Robert asked about her background, her family, her hopes for the future. Olivia found herself opening up in a way she rarely did, even with close friends. "You're a remarkable young woman, Olivia," Robert said softly as they finished their meal. "I hope you know how much potential you have." Olivia felt a warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the wine. As they said goodnight outside the restaurant, Robert's hand lingered on her arm for just a moment longer than necessary. Olivia's skin tingled at the contact. That night, as she lay in bed replaying the evening in her mind, Olivia knew she was in dangerous territory. Robert was not only her boss, but also 20 years her senior and married with grown children. Any kind of romantic entanglement was completely off limits. And yet, she couldn't deny the powerful attraction she felt, or the way her heart raced at the thought of seeing him again. Over the next few months, Olivia and Robert's paths crossed more and more frequently. They would chat in the break room or bump into each other leaving the office late at night. Each time, Olivia felt the chemistry between them intensify. She tried to push away her growing feelings, throwing herself into work and keeping busy with friends on the weekends. But she couldn't stop thinking about Robert, his kind eyes, his easy laugh, the way he made her feel seen and valued. One Friday afternoon, Olivia was surprised to receive an email from Robert asking her to stop by his office before she left for the day. Her palms were sweaty as she knocked on his door. "Olivia, come in," Robert said warmly. "I wanted to let you know that I've been very impressed with your work lately. There's an opening for a senior analyst position and I'd like to recommend you for it." Olivia's eyes widened. "Really? That's incredible. Thank you so much." "You've earned it," Robert said. "We'll need to do a formal interview process, of course, but I have no doubt you'll excel." Without thinking, Olivia stepped forward and hugged him. Robert seemed surprised for a moment, then wrapped his arms around her. They stayed like that for a beat too long before Olivia stepped back, flustered. "I am sorry. That was unprofessional of me," she stammered. "No need to apologize," Robert said softly. His eyes searched her face, and Olivia felt a charge of electricity between them. Before she could think better of it, Olivia leaned in and kissed him. Robert hesitated for just a moment before kissing her back with an intensity that took her breath away. His hands tangled in her hair as he pulled her closer. Suddenly, the reality of what they were doing came crashing down on Olivia. She pulled away abruptly. "Oh God, I shouldn't have done that. I'm so sorry." Robert ran a hand through his hair, looking conflicted. "Olivia, I can't deny that I'm attracted to you, but you're right, this isn't appropriate." Olivia nodded, fighting back tears. "I understand. It won't happen again." She turned and fled from his office, her emotions in turmoil. That weekend was torture for Olivia, as she replayed the kiss over and over in her mind. She knew she should feel guilty, but all she could think about was how right it had felt to be in Robert's arms. On Monday morning, Olivia steeled herself to face Robert at work. But when she arrived, she learned he had left for an emergency trip to the New York office. She wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or disappointed. A week passed with no word from Robert. Olivia tried to focus on work, but she felt distracted and on edge. Finally, late one evening, she received a text from an unknown number. "Can we talk? Meet me at the Fairmont Hotel bar in an hour." Olivia's heart raced as she debated what to do. She knew meeting Robert alone was a bad idea, but she couldn't resist the pull she felt towards him. An hour later, she found herself walking into the dimly lit hotel bar. Robert was sitting in a secluded booth in the back. When he saw her, his face lit up with a mix of relief and longing. "Olivia, I wasn't sure you'd come." She slid into the booth across from him. "I wasn't sure I should." Robert reached across the table and took her hand. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. I know it's wrong, but I can't fight how I feel anymore." Olivia's resolve crumbled as she looked into his eyes. "I feel the same way," she whispered. Without another word, Robert stood and held out his hand. Olivia took it, allowing him to lead her to the elevator. As the doors closed behind them, he pulled her into his arms and kissed her deeply. Later, as they lay tangled in the sheets of Robert's hotel room, Olivia felt a complex mix of emotions: exhilaration, guilt, and a deep sense of connection to the man beside her. She knew their lives would never be the same after tonight. The next few weeks passed in a blur for Olivia. By day, she and Robert maintained a professional distance at work, but stolen moments in his office or clandestine meetings at hotels became a heady addiction. Olivia knew what they were doing was wrong, but she couldn't bring herself to end it. Robert made her feel alive in a way she never had before. For his part, Robert seemed just as caught up in their affair. He showered Olivia with attention and affection, making her feel cherished and desired. But reality had a way of intruding on their secret world. Olivia began to feel increasingly guilty about the deception. She hated lying to her friends and family about where she was spending her time, and the knowledge that she was helping Robert betray his wife weighed heavily on her conscience. One evening, as they lay in bed together, Olivia broached the subject that had been gnawing at her. "Robert, what are we doing? Where is this going?" He sighed and pulled her closer. "I don't know, sweetheart. I just know that I care about you deeply. But you're right, we can't go on like this forever." Olivia's heart clenched at the thought of ending things, but she knew they were on an unsustainable path. Maybe we should take some time apart, figure out what we really want. Robert was quiet for a long moment before nodding slowly. "You're probably right, but know that whatever happens, these past few months with you have meant everything to me." They parted that night with a bittersweet kiss, both unsure of what the future held. Olivia spent the next few days in a fog, going through the motions at work while her heart ached. She hadn't realized how central Robert had become to her life until he wasn't there anymore. A week into their separation, Olivia was working late when she heard raised voices coming from the direction of Robert's office. She crept closer, her stomach dropping as she recognized the second voice as belonging to Robert's wife, Elizabeth. "How could you do this to me? To our family?" Elizabeth was saying, her voice choked with emotion. "I'm so sorry," Robert replied, sounding defeated. "I never meant for any of this to happen." "Who is she? Do I know her?" There was a long pause before Robert answered. It's Olivia Matthews, from accounting." Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. She turned and ran, gathering her things and fleeing the office before anyone could see her. Her mind raced as she tried to process what had just happened. How had Elizabeth found out? What would this mean for her job, her reputation? The next morning, Olivia woke to several missed calls and texts from Robert. With shaking hands, she listened to his voicemail. "Olivia, I'm so sorry. Elizabeth found some emails on my phone. I never meant for her to find out like this. I've been asked to take a leave of absence from the company while the board decides how to handle things. Please call me when you can." Olivia felt numb as she got ready for work, unsure of what awaited her there. As soon as she arrived, she was called into a meeting with HR. They informed her that due to the inappropriate nature of her relationship with Robert, she was being placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. As Olivia left the office in a daze, The full weight of what had happened came crashing down on her. In the span of 24 hours, she had lost her lover, her job, and quite possibly her entire career. She broke down in sobs as soon as she got home, overwhelmed by regret and fear for the future. The weeks that followed were some of the darkest of Olivia's life. She felt paralyzed by shame and anxiety, barely leaving her apartment. Her phone was flooded with messages from concerned friends and family, but she couldn't bring herself to face anyone. Robert tried to contact her several times, but Olivia ignored his calls. As much as part of her longed to hear his voice, she knew they needed to make a clean break. Finally, after nearly a month of self-imposed isolation, Olivia's roommate Zoe staged an intervention. She showed up with wine and pizza, refusing to leave until Olivia opened up about what had happened. As Olivia poured out the whole sordid tale, she was surprised to find that talking about it lifted some of the weight she had been carrying. Zoe listened without judgment, offering comfort and support. "Oh, honey, what a mess," Zoe said when Olivia finished. "But you can't keep punishing yourself forever. It's time to start putting your life back together." With Zoe's encouragement, Olivia began to take small steps forward. She started seeing a therapist to work through her feelings of guilt and heartbreak. She reached out to some industry contacts about job opportunities, explaining that she had left her previous position due to personal reasons. Slowly but surely, Olivia began to feel like herself again. She realized that while her affair with Robert had been intense and all-consuming, it didn't have to define the rest of her life. She was young, talented, and resilient. She could overcome this setback. As the months passed, Olivia gradually rebuilt her life and career. She found a new job at a smaller accounting firm, where she was able to start fresh without the shadow of scandal hanging over her. Though it was a step down from her previous position, Olivia threw herself into the work, determined to prove her worth. In her personal life, she reconnected with old friends and even started dating again, though she approached relationships with much more caution than before. The experience with Robert had taught her valuable lessons about boundaries and the importance of protecting her own heart. One crisp autumn day, nearly a year after the affair had ended, Olivia was walking through Grant Park when she quite literally ran into Robert. They both stopped short, staring at each other in shock. "Olivia," Robert said softly, his eyes searching her face. "How are you?" She took a deep breath, steadying herself. I'm doing okay. How about you?" Robert gave a rueful smile. "Getting by. Elizabeth and I are divorced now. The company, well, let's just say I'm no longer in charge." Olivia nodded, unsure of what to say. Part of her ached to reach out and comfort him, but she knew that door was firmly closed. "I am sorry for everything that happened," Robert continued. "I never meant to hurt you or derail your career." "I know," Olivia replied. "I'm sorry too, but I think maybe it happened for a reason. I've learned a lot about myself this past year." They talked for a few more minutes, catching up on each other's lives. As they prepared to go their separate ways, Robert hesitated. "Olivia, I want you to know what we had was real. I don't regret loving you, even if the timing and circumstances were all wrong." Olivia felt tears prick at her eyes. "I don't regret it either," she said softly, "but I think we both know it could never have worked long term. We were living in a fantasy." Robert nodded, his expression bittersweet. "You're right, of course. I'm glad to see you doing well. You deserve all the happiness in the world." As Olivia watched Robert walk away, she felt a sense of closure wash over her. The pain and regret were still there, but muted now. She had survived the storm and come out stronger on the other side. In the years that followed, Olivia's life took shape in ways she never could have predicted. Her career flourished as she gained confidence and expertise in her field. She eventually started her own small consulting firm, specializing in helping non-profits with their financial management. On a personal level, Olivia approached relationships with newfound wisdom and self-awareness. She dated casually for a while, taking the time to truly get to know herself and what she wanted in a partner. When she met James, a kind and steady high school teacher, she recognized the potential for something real and lasting. Their relationship developed slowly and naturally, built on a foundation of trust and open communication. Olivia was honest with James about her past, including the affair with Robert. Though it was difficult to discuss, she knew that true intimacy required vulnerability and honesty. To her relief, James was understanding and non-judgmental. "We've all made mistakes," he told her. "What matters is how we learn and grow from them." As Olivia's 30th birthday approached, she found herself in a place of contentment she had once thought impossible. She was engaged to James, with a wedding planned for the following spring. Her business was thriving, allowing her to make a positive impact in her community, and she had cultivated deep, authentic friendships that sustained her through life's ups and downs. One evening, as she and James walked along the lakefront, Olivia found herself reflecting on the tumultuous journey that had brought her to this point. "You know," she said, squeezing James' hand, "there was a time when I thought my life was over. That one mistake had ruined everything." James smiled at her. "And now?" Olivia looked out at the sunset, painting the sky in brilliant hues. "Now I realize that it was just the beginning, that sometimes we have to go through difficult things to become who we're meant to be." She thought back to that naive 24-year-old who had been so easily swept off her feet by Robert's charm and attention. While she no longer harbored any romantic feelings for him, Olivia could acknowledge the role that relationship had played in shaping her. The affair had forced her to confront hard truths about herself, her need for validation, her willingness to compromise her values for excitement, her tendency to get lost in fantasy rather than facing reality. Working through the aftermath had been painful, but it had also led to tremendous personal growth. Now, Olivia approached life with a hard-won maturity and self-awareness. She knew her own worth and didn't need to seek it in the approval of others. She had learned to set healthy boundaries and to be discerning about who she let into her inner circle. Most importantly, she had discovered a resilience she never knew she possessed. As she and James continued their walk, talking and laughing together, Olivia felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. She was exactly where she was meant to be, with a bright future ahead of her. That night, as she got ready for bed, Olivia caught sight of herself in the mirror. She saw a woman who had been through fire and emerged stronger for it. The girl who had fallen for Robert was still there, somewhere deep inside. But she had been tempered by experience, her rough edges smoothed into something beautiful and enduring. Olivia climbed into bed beside James, curling into his warmth. As she drifted off to sleep, she sent a silent thought of thanks to the universe. Every step of her journey, even the painful ones, had led her here, and she wouldn't change a thing. 5 years later, Olivia sat in her home office, putting the finishing touches on a memoir she had been writing. It had been a cathartic process, revisiting the highs and lows of her 20s and early 30s. She hoped that by sharing her story, she might help other young women navigate the complexities of love, career, and self-discovery. As she wrote the final paragraphs, Olivia reflected on how far she had come. She was now a mother to a precocious 3-year-old daughter with another baby on the way. Her marriage to James was strong and fulfilling, built on a foundation of mutual respect and unwavering support. Her consulting business had expanded, allowing her to hire several employees and take on larger projects. She had even started mentoring young women in the field, passing on the hard-earned wisdom she had gained over the years. Olivia's relationship with Robert was now a distant memory, filed away as an important chapter in her personal growth, but no longer holding any power over her. She had heard through the grapevine that he had remarried and moved to California to start a new business venture. She wished him well, grateful for the lessons their time together had taught her, but no longer feeling any attachment. As she saved the final draft of her memoir, Olivia heard the front door open and the sound of James and their daughter returning from the park. She closed her laptop and went to greet them, her heart full of love and contentment. Later that night, as she lay in bed with her hand resting on her growing belly, Olivia thought about the legacy she wanted to leave for her children. She hoped to teach them resilience in the face of adversity, the importance of living with integrity, and the power of forgiveness, both for others and for oneself. Most of all, she wanted them to know that it was okay to make mistakes, to fall down and get back up again, that life was a journey of constant growth and self-discovery, and that even the darkest moments could lead to beautiful transformations. As she drifted off to sleep, Olivia felt at peace with her past and excited for the future. The forbidden relationship that had once consumed her had ultimately set her on a path to true fulfillment. It was a reminder that sometimes the greatest challenges in life can become our greatest teachers. In the end, Olivia's story was not just about a forbidden love affair, but about the resilience of the human spirit and the power we all have to shape our own destinies. She had emerged from the fire, not unscathed, but stronger and wiser for the experience, and for that she was eternally grateful.